So, all right. Thank you. This was just the introduction of this was Anne Messner, conceptual artist. I invited her for the Legal Illegal show to Berlin, and actually it was also in Stuttgart on 2 different places. And I like their work she did in the 70s, so I just doing really crazy stuff. Now she's teaching in Pratt Institute in New York. And to start, I just want to maybe talk about recent projects. Like this month, I started a movie in Berlin, actually. It was a mystery. And also in the same time, it became an public art project at once, in the same time. And I like to just want to show you the trailer. It was on 35 millimeters, and it's now on DVD for 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. Okay, sound, please. Actually, this guy is a German anarchist. He died 80 years ago. Okay, this trailer was in all movie theaters in Berlin for 4 weeks, and I was really glad I got the money for producing a film. And the idea was just bringing ideas together. It means an art piece as a kind of a trailer, or as a movie, and doing intervention in the streets, throwing papers like a waterfall from a shopping mall. And in the same time also reacting on the election, what took place in Germany in September. And like everywhere in the world now, we have this really extreme conservative movement, like this almost right-wing politicians are going on also in Germany now. And therefore I installed a new party, and it was founded by an anarchist. He already is dead since 80 years. And I printed posters, and really I put him into the election thing. So he became a member. It was all over Berlin as a guy who stood against the more or less very conservative parties. And also different art pieces I used it, so it became like a realization of a project and a documentation at once. So I was independent also from press reaction, because it was in all, it was on TV, and it was also on different video stores and in movie theaters as a 35mm movie, always in front of major Hollywood films or German films for a long time. So it became also a part of Berlin's film. And the most scenes I developed together with people on the street. So I walked on the street and I asked people from the neighborhood what they have to tell me, what they like to play on the street. And 2-3 guys said, we like to rob a bank. I said, okay, let's rob a bank. So they walked actually in without permission, of course, and took on all the shields on, and they walked in and started running out of the bank. Of course, without robbing, but so we did all this stuff, and other people started following them. I had to hold them back and to stop them. And so it became really interesting. Also, so 2-3 times we robbed the bank with the camera, and I never asked for permission. I just asked people to play spontaneously. And only one guy, he was a bodyguard, he's a friend of mine, he's an actor, and he played a very serious bodyguard and gangster. And also a mafia guy, a gangster. I asked him also to speak about his jobs. So it became part of the time, part of the reality, part of the city, and it mixed up all different medias. And in the end, it was a movie. Like the movie is on the street anyway. If you walk on the street, you have all the time different stories ongoing. And so I was very glad to get actually funding from the city of Berlin for this project. And so I worked with a camera, and I never worked with a 35mm camera before, so it was a different, very funny experience. And to jump over into also another recent project, I just came from New York, but I was, last week, I installed in Vancouver, Canada, a project called the Chunky Library. And the opening was last Friday, and it's running the next 2 months in Vancouver. And the reason, and here it is, and I got the invitation doing a public art piece in Vancouver, and they just started this new library. Okay, the new library there. And there is also the background is in Vancouver, a huge amount of junkies and homeless and heroin addicted people on the street. So I proposed the idea to invite all junkies from Vancouver and start creating their own library in the public art library. So I spoke with different organizations and junkies on the street in Vancouver to create a Nova library. The Nova library comes from William Burroughs. You know William Burroughs, who wrote Junkie, a beatnik writer, together with Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac. He founded the beatnik in the 60s, and he wrote Nova Express, a book, and also Chunky. And so I just took his name, the name Nova, from him, and asked junkies to create and to come up with ideas for a library. And then more than 500 people, they became part of the movement, and they filled the space with their ideas, with their books, what they think about the world, and it was become really an interested point of. So it was not just about drugs, it was really a wide spectrum of life. It was about crime, it was of course a lot about beatnik literature, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, Timothy Leary, LSD experience, also psychological things, and so it became a really amount of knowledge there, yeah? But in the moment I also become more and more trouble with the library, because it's organization, as a bureaucratic organization, they got a little bit pissed off the situation, that too many junkies got involved in this, and it was a different organization system. They had to bring up a different, at first, space and books. This was an agreement. But finally, after a couple of weeks' work, it was, the opening was last week in Vancouver, and it was a very nice mixture of people, where junkies came and also the librarians from the very bourgeois level from Vancouver. And I think it was a really nice step of also using art more than having an aesthetic moment of doing some installations, like coming from a different city to Vancouver, doing an art piece and nothing else, and leaving. So it was more like a work with the people there and involve people, so become back to reality, to art. Okay. Oh, I kicked it out. This computer. Yeah, and it's now till end of November. It will be in Vancouver, and it's in the they called it the Western. I like the version that it was usually the Western section of a library, of a public library, and it was now filled by only suggestions of junks on the street. And Vancouver also, I think the city will change like a lot of cities before Olympic Games. Like I grew up in Munich, and as 72, I was a student, and then the whole city became something else. So everybody prepared to make the city clean for tourists, for the Olympic Games. So everything became also very expensive, and there were no more room for other people. For people like art students yeah. And this was the point where I like to also jump back to a project, what happened in Berlin in the same time. Like in this summer, in August, I got also this invitation of working with the archive in Berlin, with the biggest art archive in the world, actually. They invited 5 artists to work with the amount of knowledge of art. What we all know that, and it was my experience also, like I'm teaching in San Francisco sometimes in New York, and I found out that the amount of history is, or the knowledge about history, even if it goes back to the 70s, 80s, is so small. So people really, they ignore almost history, and therefore they created this big archive in Berlin to reinstall also the movements from the 20th century, like Dada movement, Situationists, more or less happened in Paris, also in Germany, and the Fluxus movement. And I found, I was really lucky, I discovered this guy. He is actually the father of John Hartfield. I found in an archive that John Hartfield, he was the founder of the Dada movement in Germany in the 20s. And he started the collage technique. So he attacked, for example, Hitler and the Nazi regime in the 20s, 30s. And though he had to escape to London, and he had to move to London into the exile, and he came back to Berlin in the 50s, where he died almost unknown in a small cabin in the woods. And I got the information and also about his books, about his life, and nobody, even if he was a famous Dada artist, nobody wrote about his father. And I found out that his father was an anarchist and a writer of 15 different books he published, but nobody ever spoke about it. It was never published in any art books about John Hartfield or Wieland Herzfeld, about Dada movement, and he had enormous influence to German Dada. So he died in 19th in a psychiatric institute. They put him into a psychiatric institute because he attacked the government, he attacked the Pope, he attacked all different people, and he ended up living like a hippie end of the last century in a mountain cabin for 5 years, where he had 4 kids in a mountain shack in the Alps. And so John Hartfield actually and his brother Wieland Herzfeld, he was a big publisher in Germany, published all different art books and like Thomas Mann and all great writers, and they all grew up like mountain kids. And this story was total unknown, so I was lucky. I got the possibilities to do a book and actually to start to this shack in the woods where John Hartfield lived, or he built for his kids, is meanwhile destroyed. And I rebuilt it with the help of a carpenter in Germany for the new building, the new museum in Germany for the Akademie der Künste right on the Brandenburger Tor. So it became part also of the architecture and also a surrealistic element of the architecture in the museum in Berlin, a new architecture. And this all very fancy, like if you know John Hartfield's work, he worked always with collage, used different elements, put the stuff together, and here it's the same. He used a lot of Bavarian elements, mountain elements, and also Russian, the weekend houses of the Russians, the dachas. And he put it all together and he built a sculpture. And this is destroyed now, and so I got the possibilities to rebuild it and also present it together with a book and the story of the old anarchist, so to bring him back to life, and also make like I did with the legal illegal book. I started writing about the unknown movement of illegal art in the history, and therefore it started earlier because it was like the beginning of the 19th century or the end of the 19th century. This we called them anarchists, but they were really free thinker, and they had all different conceptual ideas in their mind, where they also worked like artists. And I read his books and I saw his books, and it was almost like a contemporary artist. And it was very interesting, to bring things back to life, even if it's 150 years old. And here it's like, this is a detail John Hartfield developed. And it was like a funny thing, like you find the elements in Switzerland, the sun and all the the carvings. Yeah, and now I think from this project I like to switch over into, where is it? Here. A little bit an illegal project I did also in June this year. I was invited by the Berlin Museum, the Gropiusbau. They had a show about Turkey. Because Turkey become now part of the European, or they want become part of the European Union. And in Germany is quite a difficult situation, What's about the Turks in Berlin? What's about the Turks in Europe? And how is the relationship to Turks? And so they asked me to do a piece, and I asked him, just give me $2,000, I do a piece. And I traveled to Istanbul, and I went to the bazaar, and I bought a passport, and I changed the passport into my passport in the black market in Istanbul. So I got actually the identity card, and I used an old passport picture of myself, a 10-year-old passport picture of my recent passport, German passport, and also I got not only the identity card, also the passport with a visa on it as a Turkish, with a Turkish nationality. And the only thing I changed, I just put my name on it, my real name on it, and the rest was all the original thing, you know? And I had just put the, and you know, meanwhile, it's not anymore a tricky thing, because in Europe we have a lot of Turks that have German names or mixed names. So Ahmed Müller, for example, or Mehmet Scholl, a soccer player, and a filmmaker, also Stefan Micheel, or you know, so this very funny names and combination names. So I got this passport and I traveled as a Turk. In Turkey, I lived in Istanbul, and I traveled back to Germany, and nobody said anything. So I was a Turk for 4 weeks, yeah. And I put it back to the museum, and I gave it to the curator as my piece, you know. And they were very scared, because he said, you know, police is coming probably, and because it's an illegal act. But in the end, nothing happened, you know, because probably art is one of the greatest protections you always have. If something is declared as an art piece in a museum, it's you know, police usually is not doing a big act on them, you know. And this is all the story I had also for the illegal book, and the history where illegal art pieces were also established in the art context later on. And then I was actually, because I did this project, I was invited for a biennale in Istanbul to do a piece, and I made a Turkish newspaper. In the same time, I brought one with me. It's like, it was in Turkish. I speak no word Turkish, of course. So I did a paper like this. Okay. Some texts. But I used Thoreau or Rebecca Solnit or Guy Debord. People are talking about walking on the street, you know, and this was all the newspapers about walking in Istanbul. And I asked 15 Turkish young artists to show me the city, and I walked with them around. And they showed me nice places, and I spoke with the guys about ideas for really nice places, for interesting places. So it was a kind of a collaboration thing. And it ended up with a magazine that came out actually 3 weeks later. So the print was in 1 day. And then, so we worked hard on the project, but the most time we were walking through Istanbul. And it's actually a really nice place, and I really highly recommend everybody to go to Istanbul. It's a big city, and it's an interesting place. It's in the edge of East and West. And it's a big art world there, too. And a lot of energy in the streets. Okay, and here I introduce you to my art dealer. I have my art dealer in Istanbul. This guy here. He's selling my paintings on the bazaar. I'm kidding, yes, of course. I like the guy here. He told me he had one painter. I asked him about the painting. He said he knows one painter. He always paints the same thing, and he sells it. And it's actually not in Bavaria, or like, you know, like in Germany or Switzerland. It's in East Anatolia in Turkey. So for some kitschy house things, you know. And here's a place where we worked on the passport, the identity card. The passport was a different act. It was more complicated. But the identity card we did on a computer, or somebody worked it out on a computer in Istanbul. And here's one was also part of the magazine I did. I like the scene here, you know. It is a picture of the project we did. I walked through the city and I found the situation like this, you know. It was it was reality. And this is what the most time I found is if you walk in the city and have your eyes open, you find the most nicest art pieces, you know, and sometimes they are there, you know, and reality is sometimes more better or more interested for me than going into a gallery. So walking became really an interested aspect of just go out every day, 2-3 hours, and just stroll around the city, do nothing, and just look. Yeah, maybe we should switch over now to the talk about because now we spoke about the illegal things, and we have here. We should take the slides now. Okay. I have to push a button somewhere, right? No show? Okay. Watch. And actually, yeah, this is the book. I also brought with me here the book Art Beyond the Law. And it was interesting. I started already 4 years ago to put stuff together, to build my own archive about art, what it was, you know, which became on the border of legality or was illegal, more or less. But in the end, I saw it as a very important art piece. And I think also this sometimes is very necessary in art to do something illegal, because the legality point is a very complicated aspect, because more and more governments are more illegal than we think, you know. If you look to America, what Bush is doing, I think he's the most illegal guy. And we have it in Germany also, not only in the old history, also in the 70s, this Franz Josef Strauss, for example, he did a lot of deals, very strange things and so the word legal or illegal become a different meaning, meanwhile. And also in art, I found out in the archive that the boundaries through art were really pushed forward. What maybe in the 60s, if you look like the Vienna sectionists, they were arrested because they did performances on the street. 10 years later, nobody was interested anymore on this act, you know. So it became an important statement to push boundaries more for the liberalization of a country, of a state, of a society, and it became more freedom on it. And therefore, I think it was a very important movement, especially the art movement in the 20th century, where we have to start with Dada, to Situationists, the Fluxus movement, or the conceptual art. And here, for example, we have Tony Labat is a Cuban artist, actually, and he kidnapped a politician in Cuba, but he called his project Kidnap Attempt. So it means the guy who ran as a governor in California, he was actually an artist. It was Lowell Darling, a conceptual artist. And so he said, you are playing the role of becoming a governor, so you have to also get ready for the moment that you will be kidnapped. And you know, like the funny thing, like in California, we have all different, like we have Arnold Schwarzenegger, we have porn stars are running for governors, so it becomes sometimes as a a showbiz, you know. So he reacted in this term, and he tried to kidnap this guy. But of course, he didn't know about the situation. And he showed up with a car, and he tried to, you know, to force him into his car. But then, in the end, there was one big point: he couldn't open the seat, you know, the back seat, so he couldn't push him backwards into the car. So he gave up. Otherwise, it had too much trouble, you know. So he let him go, and he just made the documentation, and the guy never found out who tried to kidnap him. Yeah. And also Tony, he never published the pictures for, I think for more than 10 years he didn't publish the pictures. So I asked him for the illegal book to give me the pictures and to speak about the project, and you know, and so he ended up finally on the cover of the book. And here is another piece. It's a guerrilla art action group in New York in '69. They burned the American flag during the Vietnam time, and they both were not, police came and they stopped it, but they told me they were not arrested for burning the flag. They got a file for organizing an event, the event called Being Against Vietnam. So they were arrested as organizers. It's a very interesting moment of the law thing in America about who get, you know, you get charged. You know, also like Tony Shrafrazi, who painted or he overpainted a picture, or other artists, they like they were not charged, but the dealers, the gallerists, they got a law file for that because they were the organizers. And this is a piece of this English artist, Janice Kerbel, and she used almost 1 year to work on the details how to rob a bank in London. And then he published the book, and she made all you know, how the security is working and what the back entrance and where are the surveillance cameras, etc., etc. But the funny point was she published the book, and then the bank went bankrupt. Yeah, and here, and everybody knows it's Abbie Hoffman, like the icon of American '68 generation. And he did, for me, is one of the most incredible pieces he did. He threw 1,000 $1 bills into the stock market on Wall Street. And everybody stopped immediately to work and tried to catch the dollar bills. So the whole market crashed. And he threw the money from the gallery on Wall Street, and and since the time they have glass on the gallery, so it's not anymore possible to walk on it or to throw anything down. So I think it was really a beautiful piece in a way how to make with a very simple moment to you know, to change the system totally with a couple dollar bills, you know, to bring everything down. And so actually he started the project, Abbie Hoffman, and he also was Jerry Rubin together. And you know, Abbie Hoffman, meanwhile, he committed suicide. It's 15 years or 10 years almost ago, because he lived in underground for more than 5 years. And after he was legalized, he was not in prison, but he was then legalized, he committed suicide. But this piece had an enormous influence, I think, to the most conceptual art pieces. So I spoke to people like Tony Labat or Dennis Oppenheim, and all the people said that Abbie had a big influence to the art world in the 60s and 70s. And here is this also Abby Hoffman. So with a dildo and painted in American flag, yeah. And in these days, it was also illegal to use the flag for producing a T-shirt or something like that. And it was the flag show, 69, organized by Guerilla Action Group. And now we are really back in the Dada history. And this guy, Otto Cravin, he is, I think he had the still influence to not only to conceptual art, he had influence to the situationist and even the Sex Pistols. He motivated them to write songs, you know. And Otto Cravin, he was an artist, friend of Marcel Duchamp, and he was one of the first actors who declared, who started a fight against the world champion, the box heavyweight champion. And it was actually in Spain, and you can imagine some of the artists, like Jeff Koons or somebody, asked Mike Tyson for a boxing fight. So he was knocked out on one of the first rounds. But then he made a big statement against the war. So he said maybe it's just better to have a nice boxing fight or instead going to war, you know. And he disappeared in the Gulf of Mexico in 1918, and nobody actually knows where. Nobody found him again, so he disappeared. And a lot of stories are about him, and he had enormous influence to the Dadaists, to the Situationists later on. It's actually the Situationists hanging out in Paris. And this is Anne Messner. We saw the video in the beginning, blowing up a balloon in the middle of rush hour in New York subway. And here it's also one of my favorite pieces is Mr. Chris Burden. He built a couple of these airplanes, and like B-52 bombers, he installed joints under the wings of the toy plane, and he threw them across the Mexican border. More details, and here. This is Terry Fox. He worked a lot with Joseph Beuys as a San Francisco artist. And the beginning of the Vietnam War, he walked on the campus of Berkeley. And you can imagine it was right at the beginning of the hippie movement, the flower power. He burned a big flower field on the campus of Berkeley. So I used this big burning machine, and he burned all flowers. And he said it was his first political piece he ever did. This is actually the hot cups from Dennis Oppenheim. There you see the San Quentin prison in California. So Dennis Oppenheim, he walked to the parking space of the prison, and he stole from the cars from the parking lot all the hot cups. And actually, his son helped him doing this stuff, and he installed them right in front of the prison. And then the hot cups ended up in a storage, and so I asked him for the legal-illegal show. After more than 20 years, he gave me the hot cups. So he cleaned them, and he shipped them to Berlin. So we installed them there. You know, all the 68 Cadillacs, and they are almost like the holy cow of the American society in the end 60s. Gordon Martha Clark's the Pier 52, where he cut this enormous hole into the factory, an empty factory in New York City. So there's a beautiful video about the piece. And also, and here is Gregory Green. It's an announcement in Berlin how to build a bomb. So he put it as an art installation, a public art piece on the stairways in Berlin. But police came later on, 2 days later, and they took it down. But actually, you can find all the ways how to build a bomb, maybe in the Swiss Army handbook or on the internet. So it's a really easy thing. And this is Francis Alès walking with a gun through Mexico City. He just made an experiment. So he bought a gun and put it in the hand, and he walked through the streets of Mexico City till he was stopped by police. And this piece was part of the show. It's object only of stolen objects, where Tim Ulrichs, a conceptual artist from Germany, he walked in a supermarket and stole all different items, put them all in a box, and brought it into a museum. And actually, a collector bought the piece. And on the top is Gianni Motti. You know, he was in the news a couple months ago because he got the fat where Berlusconi, the Italian president, he was in a surgery and he got all this in a hospital. They took his fat out of his body, and he stole this material and made a soap out of it. And here he is in UN in Geneva on the UN government, and there was a meeting about Indonesia and the human rights in Indonesia, and nobody showed up from Indonesia. So he walked as an Indonesian parliament guy into the meeting of the UN conference and started talking. And nobody stopped him, you know. And this is the group Gelatin. They built the balcony on the World Trade Center. So it was actually 2 months before. And they smuggled all the materials over weeks into the building because it was not allowed to bring anything into the World Trade Center, not big wooden stuff. So they smuggled a lot of material in and built a balcony there on the 30th floor. So they told me that a beautiful view there. And there's actually a book now. And there's another, I think the last piece I show from the Legal Illegal show is a young artist, Jean Blugel from New York City. He broke into houses in California and installed out of the equipment of the house, he made sculptures. And then he left. He took a picture. He never stole anything, but he said it was easy to go in all these California houses. It was this one in San Diego. So he broke in and built sculptures. Now this is during the Legal Illegal show, I asked my favorite museum in Berlin to participate on the show. And this is the Museum for Criminal Activities and for police, from the police department. And they show all the best cases in the museum, how to maybe to break in the safe and all the examples. It's like an art show. And actually they build a hammer right on the stuff, and they're old officers, they're working on their ideas, and they had the feeling they're curator and artist at once. And it's really a nice place there, you know. It's open only one time a week. And this is a funny story. You know, in Berlin, we had in the 80s, a lot of artists, they squatted houses because it became very expensive, and people tried to get rid of all the houses in the Berlin area. So 200 houses were squatted by people, and they defended the houses, you know, also. So the police officers, they rebuilt and they made models, you know, of the scenes, how they tried to get rid of the squatters. And they built it 15 years ago, this model, and it was really for me, like an art piece. And I asked the guy who did that what he thought, and he told me that he was hired by the German government to fight the squatters, but now he had to change his opinion. He had to thank the squatter, he said, because they helped to keep Berlin like it is, and not turn it over into an investment company or anything, you know. So it was an interesting statement of an old police guy to say that he was used. So actually, he was in a illegal position during this work, in a moral illegal position. He told me, and now he said that he really understood all the squatters. Why they are keeping houses, why they're keeping all this amount of beautiful old houses, and the scenage of the situations of an old structure of a town. And you know, also like people like Joseph Beuys, he helped in the 80s also the squatters. Not only in Berlin, also artists from in the 80s, they helped the squatters in New York to work and to get support from all different parts of the society. So Joseph Beuys, for example, he walked to the squatters and he asked him, how I can help you? You know, he had a big museum show in Berlin, and he said, no, I have to go to some squatters, you know. So it was a really big statement. And actually this criminal museum inspired me to make my own criminal museum. It was last year I did in San Francisco. They asked me to do a show, and instead I said I will do a criminal museum in San Francisco. So I did investigation about what happened in San Francisco, what's going on, and though I found out some stories, like here somebody robbed a bank, he broke into a safe, and they left a piece of chocolate, and they said thank you. And I thought it was really charming, right? And so I tried to rebuild it. I didn't have the original pictures, but I tried to get the idea and to put it into an object. Or here's like a box. It's hard to say now. And here's like so it looks a little bit like a very traditional museum. But behind each box, or in each box, is a mystery story. And for the show, I published a catalog, and I invited a mystery writer to speak about each piece, not as an art piece, more like as a mystery writer. Yeah.
So one of those pieces is down below. It's been cut into the ground, right? On the left looks like it's inserted. Is that just a?
Oh no, it's just
Shadow?
the shadow.
Oh, looks like it's
Yeah. It's just a shadow. And actually, this piece I have on a computer here, but it doesn't matter. This, like you see here, it was like a statement of maybe a switch over in the computer for a sec. And oh no, it doesn't matter. It's too much work. This is also about the cleaning stories, you know. And you hear from each artist I interviewed right here. It's all the problems we have in shows in museums with cleaning ladies. So you know the most famous story is that Joseph Beuys installed a big installation in Düsseldorf in the Kunsthalle, and then the next day it was gone. And the cleaning ladies from Turkey, they came and said, "What's the garbage here?" And they took everything out. And a similar thing happened to me also, that, you know, they don't understand sometimes, you know, like what's going on. And it's also very funny too, you know, that, you know, the position of people from a different culture coming into a place, they have the job to clean, and they clean everything. And it's very radical, you know, they remove everything. And so this happened to me. They cleaned, I had once this sculpture, I got as a present from an Italian sculptor. And this cleaning lady, she sprayed the sculpture I got as a present totally, so it really fell together, you know. So it was broken, so it was clean to death. and it's really like this cleaning fascistic idea. You know? Oh, and this is also about cleaning. And this, I think, is one of my masterpieces. Sorry to say this, but I'm still proud on that. You know, Statue of Liberty, New York City, in '95. I had with my ex-colleague, Stefan, we founded p.t.t.red. And as a present to New York City, we decided on the end of this one-year grant in New York City, we will turn the Statue of Liberty into red light. So, and then we start how to do it, how to figure out what you're doing. You know, you cannot do it official, and it's very complicated, so we made an investigation program. We observed everything, all details, all security guards, how they're moving, what they're doing. And finally, after 1 week, more than a week, we found out we had the complete security system schedule of of the island. And we found out that there is an amount of time, 10 minutes, you can do what you want. And in this time, we covered all spotlights with red chili filters and put them all on them. And for security reasons, you know, for tourists, if they ask you whatever, I bought on Chinatown a ranger uniform. So I look like a ranger, put them on them, so if tourists ask, they always look, I work here. And so it was really interesting. And then I left with the last boat with Stefan. It was past 5 o'clock is the last boat. It's going back, and then we bought a bottle of wine. You know, it's tricky in New York, but with a flag, you know. So we were waiting, and then it became darker, and the lady was red. So it was really beautiful for a couple hours. And of course, they changed it back. And nobody ever spoke about a word about it, you know. So it was like the secret thing of New York, you know. So one night, the Statue of Liberty in red. Prost. '95, yeah. Oh, that's a bad shot. Oh, maybe it's too much to talk now. You know, this is like a museum in the Hamburg Kunsthalle. They were very short. You see the poster? This is exactly the amount of money of art they own. There was a job, say, Frank Barth from the Kunsthalle, he did the show about the Kunsthalle, and they invited us, p.t.t.red, to do a piece. Actually, it was our last piece, p.t.t.red piece, 1990. And they asked us to do a piece about the Kunsthalle, Hamburg. And we walked in and we made an investigation about all art they have and got all files of all art pieces, paintings, sculptures, and all the insurance money behind, and added it up and got to this amount of money and published it in front of the Kunsthalle. So the Hamburg people, usually they are very reserved and nobody speaks about the money. They got different reactions to that, and the curator got a little bit trouble because collectors didn't like the idea that their money and their amount of art will be published. Inside of the Kunsthalle, I had a file of each art piece, and they all showed exactly how much money it is worth in insurance money. And you know the money is always changing. You cannot sell 2 Matisse in the same time, then everything's bankrupt. It's a market situation now. but the stable thing is the insurance one. Oh, this is like 91 piece. You know that General Schwarzkopf and Powell, they had the Desert Storm, victory parade in Disneyland, 1901. And I was with Stefan in New York at the same time, and I saw on the newspaper a picture of Powell and Schwarzkopf walking hand in hand with Mickey Mouse through Disneyland. So we took the next plane to LA, and I slapped Mickey Mouse into the face. but before I made a signage agreement, so in German of course, to wrote that I agree to be punched by Hans Winkler now. And she made a sign on it, and then I slapped her. And we escaped 2 minutes later to Mexico. Because outside they had security guards, and outside was a Greyhound bus, and we figured out before there was a Greyhound bus directly to Tijuana. And so it was like a really funny story too, you know, and an intensive moment of slapping a person like Mickey Mouse. Telephone booth with telephone cell, old piece. And this is also p.t.t.red piece on 89. We started to kick off the highest top of the highest mountain of Germany. The peak of the Zugspitze, it's almost 3,000 meter high. So we decided to kick off the big symbol of Germany and take off 10 centimeters. So we walked up into the mountain and kicked off 10 centimeters, brought it to Berlin, and destroyed it or changed it into concrete, you know, the concrete machine, the mixer, in a gallery. So the gallery turns into dust after 2 weeks, total dust. So the Zugspitze, the highest German point, became dust in a gallery. Actually, it's documentation. And here's, I have better picture on the computer, but here's a project I did. I was invited last year. You know, Poland became part of the European Union. And I think we have to switch now over into the computer because this is a bad picture. And Poland became part of the European Union, and then they invited me to do a art piece on the border. So I have to. Wait a moment. Oh. Jesus Christ. Wait a moment. Anyway. Yeah, and this was the point, like, you know, that the Polish border is also famous for a lot of Germans, or a lot of Germans actually are afraid that Polish people are stealing their Mercedes and bring them across the Polish border to the east. And for the day of the European Union, I decided to do a crash of 2 cars exactly on the geographical border. So I hired a Polish car driver and a German car driver to make an artificial accident right in the middle of the border and stop the traffic. And in the end, the both police showed up, Polish police, and nobody was sure about who is responsible now. But nobody, you know, it was not announced as an art project. It was just happened, of course, you know.
So you had a lot of angry people, I would think, behind those.
Not really. Some feel sorry. Some are angry, of course. You have this variety of reactions. But it's not a nice. It's a nice place. You know, you're right in the middle of the border. You have a beautiful landscape around, and yeah. Okay, and as a final project, I think it's almost time now, not to overload the whole thing. I like to show a piece I did in Venice last year. It's a DVD's 2 minutes, a documentation of the project, Un incidente in gondola. Okay. And let's go on and go on and go on.